What is up, cinephiles? Welcome back to the channel. Today, we need to talk about a movie that has absolutely captured my mind, hijacked my algorithms, and left me completely hyperfixated. I am talking about writer-director Curry Barker's absolute masterclass in escalating dread, Obsession. Now, look, we all know the classic horror setup. Be careful what you wish for. We've seen W. W. Jacobs' The Monkey's Paw adapted 1,000 times. Even The Simpsons did it with Homer's cursed turkey sandwich. But Obsession takes that blueprint, tears it to shreds, and uses it to construct the most unsettling, toxic, and perversely hilarious psychological nightmare of the decade. I am head over heels in love with this film because it manages to do something almost impossible in modern horror. It feels completely unpredictable. It's a tragedy wrapped in a thriller, disguised as a supernatural, pitch-black comedy. Let's get into the nitty-gritty of how this cinematic anomaly actually came to be, because the backstory is just as wild as the film itself. Okay, so, for those who don't know Curry Barker, he originally blew up in the indie space by making brilliant horror and comedy shorts on YouTube, most notably his viral short, The Chair. Because of that success, UK-based T-Shot Productions sat down with him for a meeting. They wanted him to pitch a feature-length version of The Chair. But Barker? He did the ultimate creative pivot. Right there in the room, he essentially said, "Hey, I know we're here for that, but I have this other script called Obsession." He pitched them a twisted, character-driven supernatural concept on a one-pagers and a lookbook made of photos of his actual friends. It was a massive gamble, but it paid off. Blumhouse and Focus Features jumped on board, giving him a lean budget of around $1 million. And what he did with that $1 million is breathtaking. He and cinematographer Taylor Clemens shot this film with this hyper-specific, center-composed framing. There is all this intentional, awkward, extra headspace above the characters in almost every shot. Visually, before anything even goes wrong, the camera is telling you, these people are isolated, lonely, and trapped in a liminal space. Now, let's talk about the casting, because this is where the movie truly strikes gold. In a Hollywood landscape saturated with the same recycled actors, Obsession gives us a cast of incredibly talented, refreshingly fresh faces. And their performances are so grounded, so deeply believable, that it makes the incoming chaos hit 10 times harder. We have Michael Johnston playing Baron Bear Bailey, a deeply vulnerable, grieving, and profoundly lonely guy working at a music store. He's living in his late grandmother's house, completely stuck. And then we have his co-worker and childhood crush, Nikki, played by the absolutely magnetic Indy Navarrete. The chemistry between them in the first act is so warm and familiar. You totally buy their history as friends. But then, Bear buys a supernatural trinket called the One Wish Willow from a local mystic shop. In a moment of selfish weakness, he wishes for Nikki to fall in love with him. And oh my God, the shift. This is where Indy Navarrete delivers a performance that should honestly launch her into the Horror Hall of Fame. When the wish takes hold, Nikki's bodily autonomy and free will are completely stripped away. She doesn't just fall in love. She becomes a glitching, terrifying, ghoulish simulacrum of affection. The sheer creepiness that Navarrete brings to Nikki is staggering. She plays it with this terrifying intensity, wide-eyed, unblinking, hovering over Bear, slowly tightening a psychological grip. There's a scene where she literally cuts his hair while he's sleeping just to feel closer to him. It is profoundly unsettling because she isn't a traditional monster. She's a victim who has been forcibly rewritten by a magic spell. And the moments where the real Nikki occasionally breaks through the curse, screaming in agony, begging Bear to kill her and end the nightmare, will absolutely curdle your blood. But here is the secret sauce of Obsession, and why I keep going back to it. It is simultaneously terrifying and downright hilarious. Because Curry Barker comes from a comedy background, he understands that horror and comedy share the exact same DNA. It's all about timing and tension. The movie leans heavily into the absolute absurdity of Bear's situation. Bear is a coward. He's a deeply selfish guy who realizes he has made a horrific mistake, but instead of trying to break the curse immediately, he keeps trying to make it work. There is an incredible, dark irony in watching Bear panic as his dream girl turns into a literal demon of attachment. The film uses these stark, awkward silences and ironic needle drops that make you laugh out loud purely out of discomfort. It plays like a deeply sick, twisted version of the Stepford Wives, where the robot is actively malfunctioning and painting the walls red, while Bear is just standing there trying to pretend everything is fine. The humor doesn't undercut the scares. It acts as an amplifier. You laugh, your guard drops, and then Barker hits you with a sudden, grisly explosion of violence that leaves the entire theater gasping. Beneath the supernatural lore of the One-Wish Willow, Obsession functions as a brilliant, razor-sharp parable about modern relationships, entitlement, and consent. There is a profound moral lesson baked into the DNA of this script. Bear represents the ultimate toxic fantasy, the idea that romance is something that can be manufactured or forced. By using the wish, Bear robs Nikki of her choice. He prioritizes his own desire to be loved over her right to exist as an independent human being. The movie serves as a stark warning about the dangers of possession and ownership in dating. It holds up a mirror to the anxieties of modern romance, highlighting how easily loneliness can curdle into control. The tragic flaw of the film is Bear's complete lack of accountability. He views himself as the victim of a bad wish, rather than the perpetrator of a massive violation. It forces the audience into a deeply uncomfortable headspace where we are tracking the story through the villain's perspective, watching his paralysis destroy everyone around him. Ultimately, Obsession is a masterfully directed, brilliantly acted tragedy that refuses to give you easy answers. Curry Barker took a microscopic budget, a cast of brilliant fresh faces, and gave us a modern horror classic that is as funny as it is deeply depressing. I cannot recommend it enough. But hey, those are just my thoughts. Have you guys checked out Obsession yet? Were you as thoroughly creeped out by Nikki as I was? Drop your theories down in the comments below. Hit that like button. Subscribe if you want to talk more cinema. And as always, keep watching.